Utah families who depend on food stamps could be cut off soon. States across the country are being told to stop the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program for the month of November, pending further notice. Now, that's according to a letter from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Fox 13 obtained a copy from the Crossroads Urban Center in downtown Salt Lake. Fox 13's Nineveh Dinha joins us live with more on what the letter says and how pantries and people who depend on food stamps are reacting tonight. Nineveh.
Hi there, Hope. Yeah, the Crossroads Urban Center says it's a vicious cycle. If Utah families don't get food stamps, well, they will end up turning to the local food pantries. Homeless people we talked to, some who use SNAP, say losing food stamps would mean going hungry.
This is going to create a huge hardship for the people we serve here in our food pantry.
The Crossroads Urban Center posted this letter from the USDA on its Facebook page. It says in part, quote, "In the interest of preserving maximum flexibility, we are directing states to hold their November issuance files and delay transmission to state electronic benefit transfer vendors until further notice."
In November, about 100,000 families in Utah will not get food stamp benefits.
Tens of thousands of Utah families may not be able to feed their children come November. And people out on the streets like Richard Phillips.
It could impact us, and it's going to cause problems, because then you're going to come to find out you're going to have people starting to steal and do what they have to do to survive.
People around here are going to go without food.
Laura Lee Smith, who's been homeless since August, says the uncertainty is making her uneasy about where her next meal will come from.
I'm on food stamps, you know, and I don't know if I'm going to get them. And a lot of people are on food stamps, and they don't know if they're going to get them.
Others say if SNAP shuts down, they'll find a way to feed themselves.
There's always food pantries to go to get food.
But Crossroads says there's no way they could handle the increase if food stamps go away.
We'll be affected because if people, you know, if a family doesn't get food stamp benefits, they're going to come here. We can't, there's no way we could deal with I mean, that's,
Yeah, couldn't even finish his sentence after that. There was just no way, he said, that the local food pantries could deal with this. They're already feeling the pinch because WIC, a federal program which provides baby formula and food to families in need, has been affected by the shutdown as well. Now with SNAP on the chopping block temporarily, Crossroad fears their shelves will be empty. Hope, back to you.
All right, Nineveh, thank you. We'll have to see what happens.
Yeah.
Joining me now is Margaret Purvis, President and CEO of the Food Bank for New York City. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
Let's talk specific numbers. What's the impact if these cuts go through?
Well, the impact is actually multi-layered. For New York City alone, we're talking about a loss of about 76 million meals. That's more meals than we, the food bank, largest food bank in the country, distributed in a year. There's no way to make that up. It will also impact jobs. I mean, this is the grocery industry. I'm hoping that someday they're going to speak a little louder about this. Food stamps impact families and specifically children.
How many of these, the recipients of food stamps, are children?
More than half. 80% of recipients of food stamps are mothers and their children, largest number being the kids. So when they talk about, oh, people shouldn't be reliant on food stamps. The issue is that children rely on their parents to feed them. And when hard times come, food stamps actually make up a great resource.
You know, Margaret, what the argument is on the Republican side. They say, look, the program's out of control. It's gotten too large. The cost has doubled since 2008. The annual budget now almost $80 billion. They say, look, the bottom line is this is not sustainable. What do you say to them?
I say that it would be wonderful if we could wipe out a little thing called recession from our history, our very near history, but we cannot. Unfortunately, food stamp usage goes right along with where our economy is. We can't talk about able-bodied people going to get jobs when we know that there still are not jobs in many communities. The average new person who comes onto food stamps is only on the program for 10 months or less, which happens to be about the time it now takes to find a new job.
So what about this other potential impact of the bill? Because it would mean that adults without children can only get a full year of food stamp benefits if they're either employed or enrolled in a job training program. Does that make sense to you?
Well, I think it would make even more sense if they actually put some funding for job training programs. Most people who are receiving food stamps are the working poor. 91% of recipients are actually people who, there's an income, but they are living below the poverty line. So it's not that they are sitting on their lanai just enjoying this wonderful, luxurious life that comes with food stamps. They are having troubles having the ends actually meet. And that's it.
Margaret Purvis from the Food Bank of New York City, the largest in the country, as we'll follow this vote in the coming days. Thanks so much. Thanks. Checking the news feed this
Well, could this happen here on November 1st? The Department of Homeland Security says, yes, it can. It's spending $80 million to batten cities down. You won't believe why, though. Like Greece. November 1st could be a very, very, iffy kind of a day. And I'm not just talking about what many in the Catholic Church view as All Saints Day. This could be all hell breaks loose day. The Department of Homeland Security spending $80 million on a raft of armed guards to protect the IRS and other government buildings in New York. Not from terrorist threats, mind you, but from American citizens, because on November 1st, the food stamp program is set to start decreasing the amount that is allocated to food stamp recipients. Not all, but a good many, and they're worried that violence will ensue. TeaParty.net chief strategist Niger Innes says, like Greece, violence is a serious concern when entitlements are threatened. And Niger, I guess they're preparing for the worst. Should they be?
Well, this is really frightening. I mean, we are on a slow march to becoming Greece. You know, what this says more than anything is that when you have nearly 50 million Americans on food stamps that are forced to be on food stamps because of a miserable economy that big government is strangling, then you have a situation where it's obvious what government can give to you, government can take away.
But you know what's odd about this, Niger, is no one is having anything taken away at this point. Some might see the allocation of their food stamps rearranged, reprioritized, reduced very slightly, but nothing at this point that just strips the stamps from them. So let's say, I don't know how it works, if I have $75 worth of food stamps and I have $70, let's say, they are expecting riots over that. Should they be?
Well, you know, I don't know that they should expect riots this cycle. But if we do not radically change our economy and revamp our economy so that those 50 million people, nearly 50 million people, have an opportunity to be liberated from food stamps, forget 75 versus $70 versus $65.
Right.
What these people need is economic opportunity and a good job so they can put food on their own table. You know, Neil, the slaves had food stamps too. It was called scraps from Massa's table. And we have a crisis within our country right now when you have the 50 million people, nearly the entire West Coast, three states on the West Coast of the United States, on food stamps. That's the real outrage, and
yeah,
that's the real crisis.
To say nothing of about 100 million Americans who get some sort of food assistance. Now, I'm not begrudging the fact that there are some who genuinely need that help, and we should help them. But it's gotten so out of control now that if it keeps going at this pace, of course, everyone will be on it. But that begs the next question, whether we've become such an entitlement society and such an entitlement expected society that when they're even slightly curbed, well, we heard it from Richard Trump at the AFL-CIO when it comes to addressing even the growth of entitlements, they'll be held to pay on any Democrat who dare tries. So it doesn't look like we'll ever get out of this.
And we have to get out of this. I mean, we are on a slow march to being Western Europe, a socialized Western Europe, big government state where people have not only on entitlements, but have an entitlement mentality. And I'm not blaming the people that want these entitlements or in many cases might even be addicted to these entitlements. I'm saying they are victims and need to be liberated. Look, most of these folk that I talk to every day, they don't want to be on welfare. They don't want to be forced to be in a predicament where they have to use food stamps or food assistance. They want a good job. So we need to liberate this economy so that we can revive this economy to provide jobs, take the boot off the private sector so that the private sector can do what it does best, which is create economic opportunity, not just jobs, but economic opportunity for people that might want to be entrepreneurs and provide jobs.
Yeah, you gotta give people that opportunity without, indenturing them to these programs. Nigel, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Neil.
47 million food stamp recipients are having their benefits cut on November 1st. 47.6 million Americans are about to have their food stamp benefits cut, and most of them have absolutely no idea that it is about to happen. And this is basically a recession-era boost in benefits that took place back in spring. It's now set to end. There's going to be a $36 per family cut in food stamp benefits. And considering that the current average monthly food stamp income is just $272 per household, that's a huge amount for those living on the poverty line. So are we going to see shelves stripped bare in areas like we did in the aftermath of the EBT card crash? Does appear to be a very possible outcome. And again, it all goes back to dependency on government. When the rug is pulled out from underneath people's feet, there's no real safety net, and this is what they have to resort to. So the question is, those people who are suffering most from this, those on the poverty line, set to get their benefits cut once again, are we going to see riots? Are we going to see unrest like we did on a smaller scale last weekend with the EBT card system failure?
From the independent.ie. Article is by Jesse Hamilton and Jim Brunson, published October 25th of 2013. U.S. banks are told to be prepared for a 30-day crisis. The biggest U.S. banks would be required to hold enough easily sold assets to survive a 30-day credit drought under proposed new Federal Reserve liquidity rules. The Federal Reserve liquidity coverage ratio proposal, approved unanimously at a meeting in Washington, goes further than the Basel III measure adopted in January and calls for earlier implementation than the EU. The U.S. plan, most stringent for the biggest banks, is looking at implementation by 2017, 2 years ahead of Basel's deadline. The proposed rule would, for the first time in the United States, put in place a quantitative liquidity requirement that would foster a more resilient and safer financial system, Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke said before the vote. The proposal would require setting aside about $2 trillion, and the Fed estimates that U.S. banks are currently $200 billion short. The Basel Committee on Banking Supervision in January agreed on a liquidity coverage ratio meant to ensure banks can survive a 30-day credit squeeze without the kind of government aid that was required after the 2008 crisis. That standard would allow lenders to go beyond cash and low-risk sovereign debt to an expanded range of assets, including some equities and corporate debt, according to the agreement. The U.S. version would include a limited amount of government-sponsored enterprise debt while excluding private label mortgage-backed securities. Later.
This is Dabu 7, and within the next 48 hours, you will have 48 million Americans receiving a $5 billion cut in their food stamps. This is a significant hit, especially for those people that get very little. As of November 1st, I've been warning about this for a while now. The temporary boost from the 2009 stimulus is going to expire, and this is going to kick in, and it's going to be a huge cut, and it's part of this huge setup. Now, the House has also voted and passed the Farm Bill, which also puts into place $4.5 billion in savings over the next 10 years. Snip, snip. They're saving. The House will also remove 3.8 million people from the whole process on the rollover and take an additional 1.8 million people per year off the food stamps program over the next decade. They are eliminating people. Snip, snip. So they have basically just came out and stated they are removing millions of people from this program, and they are removing millions of dollars in the funding, saving all the way around. And they're taking $5 billion out of the taxpayers' mouths, right off the plate. And what are they doing with it? I tried to warn everybody. This is what they did on the eve of the government shutdown. They went out on a splurge and spent $5 billion on weapons. So they take from the plate right from our mouths and they put it right into the guns and the weapons. And they did do this beforehand, so basically they're recouping their money right off the people, right there. The $5 billion hand in hand. I'll leave links as always to this video for those of you that missed it. But this is how it basically breaks down. You're 50 million people roughly here, and you have $5 billion in cuts. Now divide that by the 50 million, you get 100. So you get $100 per head, per person that comes off. Now that's not going to work out exactly because some people don't even get that, believe it or not. Some people may only get $100 for the whole year. Okay, or maybe $500 for the whole year or something. And this $100 hit is significant. And when you take the food from the people, that's when they get into the streets and they riot. Now, Just like Obamacare, he promised you can keep your insurance. But then you found out the hard way that you can't. What do? You got to go and buy a higher premium package that meets their mandate, that meets their qualifications. Okay? Part of the hoax that people didn't get. Okay, so right there they jacked everybody for more money on Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. Haha. Got you right in our faces. Rubbed it right in our faces, even with the name of it. Ripping everybody off for higher premiums. Then they're turning around. They're taking billions off the plates from everybody. And where's it going? Look. Weapons. The same weapons that they plan to use, trust me, when all these starving people come running their way. It's obvious, and it's going to be a slow process. Just like the frog cooking, boiling, and not knowing it to the last minute. These people are slowly going to get their stuff milked, and one by one in the streets, bit by bit, it's slowly going to creep up. And just remember that EBT test run that they did for 2 hours in the chaos that broke loose. Okay? This country has not even seen it yet, with all these millions of people that are being propped up depending on this government that are about to have the carpet pulled out right from underneath of them. And when a lot of people go on the first and they think that they're going to be able to go and do their paperwork and they're going to qualify again and they're going to be able to get the same food stamps that they've been getting, find out that guess what? You're an able body and you're of age here in the right category. You don't get these food stamps no more, or they've been drastically cut. That's going to be the rude awakening, folks. The whole thing is a setup. And I'm here to tell you that they're taking our money from every which way that they can get it and taking the food right off our plates and putting it right into the same bullets that they plan to kill us with. It's a guarantee. I'll leave links as always. This has been Dabu 7. Eyes open.
Excuse me, sir. Forgot your receipt.
Checkout lines. Who needs them?
Have a nice day.
This is the future of e-business.
Dun, dun, dun.